So in the making of this video, I was not expecting to have a few meltdowns because of some gnarly-ass pictures that popped up on Google and in the articles when I was reading about something called zombie ants and basically their progression of touching a spore and then exploding fungi after they touch the spore. And this fungi in question is something called, and it's a mouthful, Ophiocordyceps Unilateralis. And because we're talking about fungi today, I thought it would only be appropriate for me to go on a fungi expedition when I went camping over the weekend, because why not? It's not like these types of fungi, especially Ophiocordyceps, are found in the deep, dark, thick Amazon forest, which is exactly where I didn't go camping. But I thought it would be appropriate for me to go on a little expedition and try to look for fungi. Kind of like bird watching, but with fungi, so fungi watching?
Oh, I see. We're on our quest for fungus.
She had her second tour of the day.
There we go. Intricate. Hello, babies.
Well, it's very famous.
Okay, that was fun. Guess what? I only spotted one fungi. How upsetting. So it's not fungus, it's a fungi because there's only one. Please excuse me. It's actually fungus for one and then fungi for many. I'm a little bit disappointed. I honestly thought I would spot more on our trail, but that's okay. It is what it is. Life is life. There's only one fungus. Okay, whatever. Fungi. Okay, whatever. There's only one fungi. There's only one fungi, okay? The thing about being in nature is just that, I don't know, there's just something about it that I love very much and makes you so calm. Even when there's only one fungi. If I were in the city right now and there were only one fungi, I'd be flipping my shit. But it's okay because we're in nature. There's so many other things to worry about other than one fungi, and I think that's how we should all be living.
Okay, it doesn't matter because Ophiocordyceps Unilateratis. Now, you actually have to get ready for this because when I first heard of it, I was like, I had to take a moment to be like, this isn't real. This cannot be real. One random day, for some reason, I was walking on the treadmill and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna watch something because if I don't, I'm just gonna think about how much pain I am in and how much I hate working out. So I was like, okay, scrolled, whatever. Found a show called Hostile Planets made by National Geographic and I was like, hey, cool. And Hostile Planets, as self-explanatory as the title is, they're basically going episode by episode of different settings on Earth when nature gets really fucked up. So it's like the desert, the ocean, and the episode I was watching that day happened to be the episode about jungles. And oh my gosh, they're so terrifying. I mean, all of the settings that they were showing were terrifying, but the jungle, something about the jungle is just a little bit freaky. Also, one great thing about this is that it was hosted by the also nature-esque guy, Bear Grylls. I'm power walking on the treadmill, sweating. It's always a hot mess. And then Bear Grylls suddenly just goes, now take a look at this ant. Little do we know that this ant is actually possessed by a growing fungus on the inside. And then he proceeds to casually narrate as the footage shows this ant absolutely losing its mind, exploding a fungus. And then he's just like, hurrah, carry on. And I'm going to explain exactly what happened because even though it was a 3-minute clip, I had to get off the treadmill and go upstairs and look up what just happened because it was nuts. And that was 8 months ago and I'm still thinking about it today. So I think this needs to be done. So let's start from the beginning. What is a fungus? Well, the general definition from perhaps my dated dictionary says that they are one of the non-green plants which include bacteria, molds, mushrooms, toadstools, etc. that feed off of organic matter.
I actually had to look up what a toadstool is, and it's basically just another name for a mushroom. But apparently, in the 14th century, they called it a toadstool because, I don't know, the cap shape of the mushroom would be like a stool for toads. So they were like, you know what? This is just gonna be a toadstool, and that's that.
And from a little extra Google search, we now know that there are over 140,000 types of prokaryotic species that are pulled into this whole genre, also called a kingdom of fungi. Prokaryote just meaning that it is a single cell organism, which also just means that it might be a little more simple, not less crazy, but just a bit more simple than a multicellular organism like human beings. So, Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, which I will now refer to just as Ophiocordyceps because it's already a mouthful as is, and I just don't want to keep saying Ophiocordyceps unilateralis. Whew! So they are a species that fall under the big kingdom of fungi. So, just like in the cases of other fungi, these motherfuckers grow to do only two things in life, which is 1, regenerate, and 2, rule the world. Fungi usually excel in moist and warm environments where bacteria or fungi can harbor and potentially create something called a spore. And these either fungal or bacterial spores will use water and the temperature to basically reproduce with itself and grow until you see a little mushroom or fungi outside, or when you're in the grocery store shopping for mushrooms because you gaslit yourself into thinking you can make that new mushroom ravioli recipe. Because otherwise, why the fuck would you be buying a mushroom? Actually, one of the only acceptable mushrooms is Toad from Mario Kart. Okay, but that's most cases, and we are not most cases. Ophiocordyceps have a very specific way on how they like to spread themselves throughout the forest, and I'll show you right now. Are you ready?
Okay, look at this formicine ant. A formicine ant also is just a species of ant. Okay, cool. Nothing too special, but maybe there actually is something special about it. Okay, anyways. So these Ophiocordyceps are a type of something fancy called entomopathogenic fungi, which means that it's a type of fungus that will be a parasite only to a specific type of insect. And you best believe these specific entomopathogenic fungi are super rare because why would a normal fungus just target one type of insect when it can just chill and be a fungus? And if you want to think of it like this, Ophiocordyceps kind of just have a big fat crush on these ants, and these ants only.
Okay, so basically, one of the spores from the Ophiocordyceps gets onto the ant. And this can totally happen by random chance. If an ant is just walking by one of the spores that are chilling on the ground, its days are now numbered. And then the spore is like, boom, yes, I like you. You were the one that I was looking for this whole time. The spore inside, happy in its host, starts to grow and grow and grow until, the National Geographic literally said this, until it grows into almost half of the ant's body weight. And this is where the ant starts to lose its shit. So if we were watching this all go down, we would see this ant kind of go into an autopilot phase where it would kind of just stop doing its normal day-to-day ant duties for its colony and get off the trail. And it totally makes sense. Because, like, if I saw my friend be taken over by a piece of fungus and they were skimping out on ant duties, I'd be like, you know what, man, go do what you need to do. So the infected ant's movements and functions are inherently taken over fully by this fungus, and that isn't even the weirdest part. So when the fungus is happy and ready to spread its spores, the ant basically climbs up onto a plant or a tree that's above ground, onto a leaf, hangs off the bottom, and then dies. And you thought the fungus would be done? No. Once the insect is dead, the fungus will burst out of the cavity's head and then release its spores into the surrounding area of where the insect died. And now these new spores that were released from the insect will now wait for its next victim. So yeah, it's a pretty brutal way to go, which is crazy. So one article that I read in the New York Times basically said that everything about these zombie ants where a fungus would possess an insect, blah blah blah, dies, new spores regenerate, okay? It was nothing new. So in 2010, a doctor named David Hughes and his teammates found a 48 million year old fossil of a zombie insect on a leaf. So yes, finding the fossil was super cool and crazy, but it actually didn't really help much into trying to sort out how this type of fungus evolved or how it works on a molecular level. But I do want to give some credit to the fungi because 48 million years, which means these fungi definitely have to be some sort of able and cunning to survive this long. And of course, researchers are left with so many unanswered questions especially that feel super hard or almost impossible to answer just because of how little we know about these rare types of fungus. They're literally still discovering new species of Ophiocordyceps as we speak. Isn't there only like 15% of the Amazon that has been discovered? 15? What about the other like 85%? Imagine how many things that are yet to discover. So of course it's something to be excited about when researchers like Dr. Hughes and others go headfirst into the world and discover crazy new things like this zombie ant. Like, you guys are cool. And in turn, that makes my fungi expedition seem very, very minuscule, but who cares? And I know I'm literally saying this from the comfort of my own home, but there are so many cool things in nature that happen if you just take a second, look around. And if it makes yourself feel any better, just narrate like Bear Grylls does about what's happening around you. So, go find a fungus. Don't touch it though, because you don't know if that's gonna be the next fungus that will turn humans into zombies and then start the apocalypse. Okay, bye, thank you.